Hello, my name's Christian Hacking and this is the CBR UK Weekly News Update. The question for this week is, where is Scotland's abortion policy heading? This week we'll be examining Scotland's latest abortion statistics and comparing them to the current climate in Belgium of legalised infanticide. Now, is this where Scotland is heading over the next decade, or will a 21st century Jenny Geeds divert disaster? Now, official statistics published earlier last week in The National, the newspaper that supports an independent Scotland, revealed that there were 13,583 terminations in 2019, the highest total since 2008. Now, depressingly, a very similar headline ran last year in another Scottish paper stating that Scotland's abortion rate was the highest in a decade. Well, sadly, a year later, the figures have only increased. A further breakdown of the stats showed that 52% of these abortions were in women that were in their 20s and 35% in women in their 30s. Roughly 70% of these terminations took place at 9 weeks, when the baby is the size of a kidney bean and smaller, and 30% after that point. Now, the article also took the time to celebrate independent statistics suggesting teenage pregnancies were at a record low in Scotland. Now, this is a good thing, right? But wait, the devil is always in the detail. You see, whilst the article shows that teenage pregnancies have dropped by a whopping 44% since 2007, the report also states, and I quote, that in 2017, the percentage of teenage pregnancies that ended in termination was the highest since reporting began, end quote. So the situation is really this. Teenagers are supposedly having less sex and more abortions, and that is meant to be a good thing. Public Health Minister Joe Fitzpatrick seems to think so, in which he states, and I quote, "It's encouraging to see a fall in rates of teenage pregnancies for the 11th successive year, with rates their lowest ever since reporting began in 1994. He puts this down to education, support, and also choice. But I beg to differ for two main reasons. Firstly, what kind of education are these teenagers receiving if more of them are going for abortions? Clearly, the unborn child is not being humanized in this so-called education. And secondly, is this really the result of education and safe sex, or simply less sex? Separate sources suggest that the real reason young people are falling less pregnant is because they are having less sex than they used to, not because of moral reform, but actually due to a potent combination of social media, online gaming, and pornography, a matter unaccounted for in this article. Add into the picture the wider context of Scotland hurtling towards a second independence referendum, and the fact that Scotland has a more liberal early abortion framework than the rest of the UK, and well, we have a real situation on our hands. Scotland's current trajectory may be exciting for Scottish nationalists, but it's a terrifying prospect for the unborn child. So jumping from Edinburgh to Brussels for a moment, we can begin to understand why. Now, in August, a revealing and disturbing study was published that showed that 94% of doctors in northern Belgium support the killing of newborn babies after birth if they are diagnosed with a disability. So, a bit of background here. The Belgians introduced legalised abortion in 1990, euthanasia in 1993, and extended this to disabled minors in 2002. And lo and behold, a mere 18 years later, 93.6% of physicians in the region of Flanders think it's okay to kill a sick or disabled baby after birth. What does this teach us? Well, it teaches us that when the killing of unborn children becomes business as usual, it doesn't take long before the killing of born children also becomes morally acceptable. This isn't a scaremonger, it's a fact. It's happened in Belgium, the Netherlands, and New York State, New York. All of these places tell a similar story. So jumping back to Scotland, what is the hope for the Scottish unborn? Now, I cannot be so blinkered as to say that the hope is Scotland staying wedded to Westminster. The Northern Irish will tell you that Westminster thinks little of exporting its baby-killing policies. Rather, it is for Scotland, with or without the UK, to rediscover its puritanical roots. It was over 600 years ago that the Scottish market trader Jenny Geeds threw her stool at an Anglican dean who sought to blur the morals of a nation. Well, may Scotland learn to throw its stool at the abortion industry that is not only blurring their morals, but killing their next generation. That is your news update with me, Christian Hacking. Do like, share, subscribe, and donate to our life-saving work, and I will see you next week.